Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester. Today we are talking about how war can affect us. My guest today is Anneros Valensi, and she is sharing with us her book, Where is Home? How a Childhood in East Germany During World War II has shaped her adult life. This has proven firsthand that war has an effect on you. And I think we all understand that, but there's nothing like hearing it firsthand from someone who has lived through the experience and now is able to share with us the do's and the don'ts. How do you survive and keep it all intact? Well, let me tell you a little bit more about Anneros. She was born in 1938 in Eastern Germany. She was 6 years old when World War II interrupted her childhood. In 1945, the family was evicted by the Polish army, and of course, they needed to get to a safe place. Well, in 1946, they were expelled from their homeland by the Russians, and they were redistributed, if you will, in West Germany. Life was still difficult. Not much food was available, and finding housing proved difficult. Well, she has studied. She has moved on from that painful time, but still has been able to share the lessons that she has learned. She is graduated as an RN, a registered nurse, and now she needs to catch up with life. So she went on to London, England, to improve her English. She was hired to work as a stewardess on a private plane, but she still was curious and restless. So she applied with TWA, which is Trans World Airlines, and was accepted to train as a flight attendant in Kansas City. She came to the United States in 1966, and she became a legal immigrant in 1975. I cannot wait to hear all of the wonderful stories that she has to share with us today. Good morning, Anneros. How are you? Thank you so much for being on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Yeah. Hello, Dr. Angela. I'm feeling fine. I just feel great, and I'm very happy to be on your show.
Thank you so much. Please excuse my raspy voice today, but I cannot wait to hear the stories that you have to share with us. Now, I have to ask you, you were 6 years old. What did you think was going on, or how did you feel when you first saw the soldiers marching through your community?
It was totally scary. I was totally intimidated. And most importantly, they came to our school. They threw us all in the back. They pushed us all in the back and talked to us, these soldiers with these black, tall boots that scared me. They were about as tall as I was at 6-year-old. And they demanded now that we had to use Heil Hitler and throwing up our arm. It was so scary. I didn't want to leave the house anymore, but we still had to go to school. But it was unbelievable. It's difficult to explain. It was just unbelievable, hard to imagine.
Yes. I can only imagine how you must have felt at that time. Now, how did your life change during the wartime, when the war was actually going on? How did your routines change? How did you stay able to just create a new sense of rhyme and reason during that time?
Well, wartime was very, very difficult. There was nothing available anymore. Soldiers everywhere. There were bombs. The bombers, they're flying above. You had to look for shelter. There was nobody telling you because you had to do it yourself. And we were 5 little children between 1.5 and 12. And my poor mother, we had to put the blankets in front of the windows, not even little candlelight. They were afraid that a little bit of light might tap to the Russians or the planes, the bombers flying above, and then they would throw bombs wherever they saw light. So I don't know. It's hard to explain that this is actually possible. For us children, we were playing in the yard before and having a good time, to suddenly being nothing but helpless helpless.
Mhm.
You can't do anything.
Mhm. Mhm. And especially with being children and the way that children understand the reality of what's going on in that moment, I can only imagine the chaos and the confusion. Just from a child's perspective of what happened to my normal day of school and play and family and having all of those fun times. I can only imagine. Now, you were, if I understand correctly, you were evacuated to a safer place. The Polish army is approaching, the Russians are approaching, and you guys needed to go to a safer place. How were you able to move about securely and to get to that safe place? And once you arrived, how did you feel once you got to a safer location?
Well, they had us gather at the marketplace, and then it was winter. It was freezing cold, end of January, on open tractors and cars, anything they could get to transport us away, just trying to find a safer area. And eventually we ended up in Czechoslovakia. And okay, millions of people moving around to hide. And they had a school. They used the school auditorium for us to gather. And it was like a camp, straw floor. And that's where we would sleep. And just nothing else. There was no food. Red Cross gave us a little bit of milk for the little baby, and some bread and soup, and that's about it. And my mother was looking to find some more food for us, and so she put me in charge of watching my younger sisters and my older brothers. They were running around looking if they can find something, some food or some shelter, or what was happening outside. So it was just, I don't know, it was just confusing. And I just followed Mother, and I just sat where she said, sit down and wait and watch the girls. So it's hard to believe, really, there was no more organized life.
Mhm. 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 Now, how did you feel when you were asked to um, help out and step up and help your siblings? How did you feel in that moment? Did you feel like a big person? Like, did you feel like a junior adult? Um, did you feel pleased that your mother trusted in you enough for such a big responsibility?
No, terrified. All I can see, terrified. And since all the people moving around and nobody knew where anybody was, I just sat there and waited, hoping she would come back. And because the soldiers, they took many women away, and they just dragged them away, and kids were just crying and stuff. And so they covered their faces and everything with not to be looking attractive or anything. So I was just sitting there shaking and terrified and hoping she would come back. And my sisters, they were also sudden, especially the baby, so quiet. She didn't even cry anymore. She was just like, I don't know, you put him down and put her up, picked her up, and it was as if she was just a doll, a rag doll, And it was just so hard to explain. And when I think about it nowadays, it still scares me.
Of course, of course. So it sounds like she almost, even though she was a baby, as though she understood that her crying right now was something that she did not need to do. That everyone was in a state of just disarray, and that was a great way, as a baby to almost understand and grasp that concept. Um, Now, when you moved from place to place during the evacuations, did you know in advance where you were going, or was it just we need to leave now, or we need to meet at a particular time, and you simply knew that you were leaving? Did you have any Was there any pre-planning of that activity, that you knew that you needed to be at a certain place at a certain time and that you were going a certain way? Or was everything just kind of in the moment?
Everyone was pretty much in the moment. Somehow, like town cries or something, when the word spread, we have to meet again, we have to meet again, and we saw people packing a little bit they had. And there were no more trains or anything because there was everything, the tracks, they were bombed, and there was no choice, but people had to walk. So we had to walk in the path, in along the river, along everywhere, and we could just take what we could carry. It was then warm now in the meantime, and people dropped their clothes, and there was nothing they could do with, because walking, and mother carrying the baby, and then we had our school bags she had given us before, so we stuffed things in there, and we children had to carry all one on our back. And she carried one in her back and one in her front, and the baby. And it was tiring. A lot of people, older people, they could not do it. And they were just lying down and at the sides. And there was nothing anyone could do, because walking. Imagine just walking and not knowing where you're going, just hoping to find someplace, a train or a station or whatever. You just walk until something happens, and it's so difficult to explain. It's unbelievable.
Yes. When something like that is happening, would you say that this is an opportunity for one to turn to their faith? Do you believe that your mother prayed prayers as she was walking, or that she had those moments where, she turned to her faith to help get her through?
Well, there was nothing to really think much about. You just followed like a herd, and because you didn't know where to go, you were not familiar with other areas, with other landscapes, with anything, and where people were walking in groups, especially, were all like sheep, just following one another and moving. Everybody else was looking for maybe a train or some sort of a transport, because hopefully we would have loved to go back home, but we couldn't go back home. There was still bombing everywhere, and scary, and soldiers, you name it. It was just such a disarray that you just followed groups of people and hoping that we are all looking for something, what there might be. So it's hard. It's so unbelievable.
I can imagine. Anneros, it is time for us to go to break, and I want to make sure that everyone is aware of the title of your book, and where they can pick up a copy and how they can follow you online. So if you would remind everyone of that, please.
Okay. My book is available at Amazon in digital or in a softcover book. And also can follow me online. I have a website. It's Anneros V. Let me spell it: ANNEROS V. And there is my a lot of stories from my book, and it's really good to read.
Alrighty, listeners, now you know where you can pick up your copy. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Chester, with a raspy voice, but we are still going to make it through today. Thank you so much for joining me today. My guest is Anneros Valensi, and she has written a book, Where is Home? How a Childhood in East Germany during World War II shaped my adult life. So that's right, we are talking to someone who has survived. Now, you guys know that I talk about being a breast cancer survivor, but she's a different type of survivor. And I am just enjoying the story that she is telling me. I know that I can't imagine what she has lived through, but God bless her and her family for having made it through. Now, Mrs. Valensi, I want to ask you this. When you were allowed to return home, what did you find?
Well, we had to be walking. There was no transportation anyway. We walked and walked, and we were hoping that our house was still standing because nobody knew. And we watched it and walked and watched it, and my mother kept looking in it in the distance because there was a manufacturing place where growing carnations, and there were glass houses, and she saw there was a big chimney. She was looking if the chimney was still there. Our building, our house was next to it, and when she saw there was a chimney, then she was hoping our house would be. And when we arrived, there was furniture, all kind of furniture and things and toys from the children in the front yard. The big bomb hole was there, and that was filled. They had just thrown in furniture and everything to fill it, and some furniture was missing. And when we got there, there was the former mayor from Falkenau, where we had lived, and he was put in there by their Russians to be an informer, in other words. So he got everything, food and all, and everybody else got nothing. There were no stores. There was nothing available. So very unreal. It's then as they let us stay upstairs in a couple of rooms and thought they're doing us a favor, even though it was our own house. And so somehow my brothers, they found somewhere, they got a couple beds. So of course we slept in two beds. Everybody crammed in, and there was no light, no electricity because how shall I say? There was no electricity. It was all destroyed, and I don't know how. If I come to think, I don't know how we survived. How my mother handled her life and us with 5 little children. I have no idea or no food. She was a nervous wreck. She was a total physical wreck. She had lost weight, everything. It's unbelievable.
You know, if we take a moment and we really think about it, especially those of us who perhaps were not blessed enough to have or to know someone who has lived through this time period, it's hard to wrap your mind around the story sometimes, but it sounds like even having lived through it, just trying to make heads or tails of what's going on, that it is such a time of disarray, such a time of purposeful confusion. And just war is a crazy time, and especially when it's aimed at a particular group of people. So I can just, God bless your mother for being able to have the mind and the wit about herself to be able to maneuver and to successfully get you all to safety and where you need it to be. I can only imagine the stress level of the parents during that time period, not just the husband and wife, like not just the couples, because it's just husband and wife that you worry about, but when you're parents, you're worrying about your little children. And as a mom, I know that I just can't imagine having that much stress and strain too. I'm so glad that she was able to get through all of that and pass that strength on to you. Now, in 1946, and we mentioned it earlier in your bio, you say that you were evicted by the Russians who had invaded your homeland. Where did you go in 1946, and how did you get there? Was it just more walking?
More walking, and If we were lucky to fetch a train, everybody was trying to get on and pushing in, and everybody, it's like wall-to-wall people pushed in. And then again, the train would leave if you were lucky to get on. Otherwise, you ended up sitting on another train station, and hoping and wondering if another train might come. So when you were on it, then you just was on a train, and wherever it would go. And if they threw people off the train again, then there you were again at the trainway station or in the middle of nowhere, and waiting and wondering. And if they threw us off the train in the middle of nowhere again, people had to walk. Just walk and hope to find something, a place where you get some food or a place to rest or whatever. It was so unbelievable. You couldn't really know where you were going. And eventually, when we were over the border and we were in West Germany, because there were trains, passenger trains. And the interesting thing is how they organized to distribute now all these German Eastern people. What they did, they put them in trains, and then the trains ran across the country from north to south, north, west, east. I mean, all over Germany. And their situation was rather interesting. What they did, every place, like a city or small community, they opened the doors and they counted how many people they threw off the train. And then the train continued. And then here they were. They had to go to maybe some place in the city or town and see where they could find the Red Cross or something and let them take care of us. So it was unbelievable. So everybody distributed playing like pawns, if you imagine on a chessboard. You just open the doors, people out, that many people out, and go find your way. How do you like that?
Just so disheartening. Man, just wow. Just that alone, just that part alone is traumatic. Just being taken from your home and just transported to a new place and, kicked off the train and said, here, just make your way. That alone is stressful and traumatic. Not to include everything else that you've been through to get to that point. My goodness. Now, I want to kind of fast forward through your life just a little and ask you, you have now studied to become an RN, and you were a flight attendant there for a while. How did you enjoy those occupations?
Well, anyway, the moment I was training, I was in a big city now, Mannheim. And for me, all I could dream of, in Germany, it was standard that by the time a child was 18, the parents were no longer, or the mother or whoever was there, responsible for us. So we had to leave our home. So I was put into nursing training. And I felt like the cocoon, and it broke the cocoon and the butterfly came out. I suddenly felt like I wanted to take the world in storm. I had no life till then. I wanted to be free. I don't have family or anything. I just wanted to be me, looked upon as a person, and it is very hard to explain. I felt amazing, free, away from it all, forget about it all, because Germany was already building up, and it was already getting nice in Mannheim. In bigger cities, life was already nice and already decent. We had stores, we had some restaurants. Even people didn't go out much for restaurants. They cooked at home. There wasn't enough money. But still, it was alive. And then I was getting curious, and I wanted to see more of the world. I felt I missed anything. In this 18 years, I was practically not much, And then I decided to improve my English. We had English in school, and I wanted to, and I figured, how do I do this? And I figured I go to England maybe, because where I worked in a hospital, a nurse came one day, and she had come back from London. She was an au pair. And I thought, perfect, I have to take this opportunity.
Well, Anneros, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show today. And one last time, if you would please, can you remind everyone the title of your book, where they can get a copy, and how do they follow you online?
Okay. The title of the book is Where is Home? How a Childhood in East Germany during World War II Shaped My Adult Life. The book is available at Amazon, and you can follow it on my web. It's ANNEROSV.com. And there's a lot of stories or excerpts, some of it from my book, and one can learn a lot from it as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself.
Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Chester. My guest today is Amanda Jane Forbes, and she has written the book Devils and Demons. So we're going to talk a little bit about the supernatural today and that environment and what you can learn from it. I'm really excited because this is the first time we've had anyone talk about this. So hopefully we will enjoy, but not only be entertained, but learn a little something as well. So let's go on and get Amanda in the conversation. Good morning, Amanda. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me.
Good morning, Angela. Good morning, everybody in America. How are you?
I am so well. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you are able to join us all the way from the UK. This is an awesome, awesome call today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on the show.
I can't wait to talk about your book, but before we do, I want to, as you can hear, I have a little bit of a cold, and I don't want you guys to have to listen to me talk so much today. So I'm going to ask you, Amanda, would you please tell us a little bit about who you are? Do your bio in your own words. Who are you?
Well, I'm from Britain. I've lived in Britain all my life. I've been a page 3 model, my first career, for about 13 years, and travelled all over the world. Got put up by the best people. Did a lot of expensive jobs. Went on television a few times, on shows, on chat shows, and I'm actually a mixed race person, so I got a lot of attention because I was the only one that was actually in the 90s, and it was my first career, like I say. So, I got to travel the world, and, sometimes I spent a lot of time alone. But then I restarted another career and was retrained to be a close protection officer in security. And I've been in security about 8 years now. And so, I live in the country. I like nice food. I go to the church with my mother on a Sunday, and we live a pretty wild life really out in the country. We like to walk and bike ride and try and keep healthy.
And I think there are a lot of people right now that are nodding their heads going, yeah, she sounds pretty much like me too.
I've always been, to be honest with you, I've always been an outdoor sort of girl. I suppose I spend about 60% outside because we used to live on a farm, and I used to have to ride the horses, feed the pigs, and do all the housework and everything. So I'm kind of used to outdoor life, but I do love it, winter or summer. I don't mind. So I just get with people that like to do that and eat a healthy Sunday meal.
Right. But no, doing those things outside and like being outdoors, I think that it really adds some years to our lives because we're not sedentary. We're not just sitting around, letting our bodies go to pot. So I think it's
Well,
great.
this is it. I mean, I think in all fairness, it does come from my father, because my father was always on the pitch. He was a cricket player,
Hmm.
and he was a he was a left-hand bowler. He was quite popular as well. He was a left-hand bowler, so we'd always be sitting outside at Trent Bridge in Nottingham as well. I don't know if people in America have heard of Nottingham, but it's a place in England. And
Hmm.
in the summer, cricket lasts a long time, so you have a really nice time watching cricket.
Hmm.
But I think that's how it began.
That is so awesome. Now, I want to talk a little bit about your book, and your book is entitled Devils and Demons. What made you write this book?
Mm. Well, Devils and Demons is my a new project for me, because I feel that everybody would love this book, and that's not because I'm trying to sell it, even though obviously I need to do that. But I think I think they'd love it, because what made me write it was the fact that I've been working, like I say, 8 years in security, and being a female officer, you kind of get bullied into going to places, whether you like it or not, to visit the sites, work 12-hour shifts on the sites, which is all written in the book, and the strange things that can happen, because I sat alone on a lot of these sites for several years at night time, starting at 7 in the evening till 7 in the morning, and therefore a lot of things were happening that I couldn't explain to people talking. So the only way I could sort of resolve the things that I'd experienced was to write in a book.
Hmm.
To let people know that this is all true scenarios of supernatural and paranormal activity. Um, that it opened my eyes basically to something that I knew existed, but I didn't want to know, but I had no choice but to face it head on. Also, I
Hmm.
was out of a job, and I love security. I didn't, a lot of people may have quit, because my first job in security was the scariest building in Britain, which was the Towers Hospital, ex-lunatic asylum.
Hmm.
And, it dates as far back as the 18th century. And this is where, a lot of situations were happening in my first job in security. So for a woman to be sitting at night on her own, and suddenly I start to fall
Hmm.
asleep, which I explain in the book. I start to fall asleep because it's that scary. I couldn't believe how scary it was. That the alarm went off as well at exactly the same time I sort of closed my eyes, and
Hmm.
it echoed all around the hospital at 1 in the morning,
Hmm.
and there was not a soul around to help me. And that's how that's how it began. This scenario with the supernatural. And in the book you'll see there's about 10, 11, 12 chapters of different events that happened in the period of the times I was working on the night shift.
Hmm.
So this is why I felt, I mean, the only way you can actually cope with all of this, because then I go to a day job and I'm back to sort of normality, kind of. I can write about it, and let people know exactly what I knew, but now I know to be true.
Hmm.
So this is why I wrote Devils and Demons,
Hmm.
to let people know that there is a spiritual side that is all around.
Did you find that
And
the scariest times were more so at night than during the daytime?
well, it was the fact that I was on night shifts that the experiences would happen. And in the Towers Hospital, um, it was so many guards, 5 guards had left, and my first night walking in, my knees just went, because it was such a big place with such a really big old chapel door, and you could still feel as if the patients were just like living in there.
Hmm.
And it was everywhere you walk in that hospital, I couldn't find any comfort to sit, because I knew I was being watched, like, by some things I couldn't see. And when I tried to explain this to the guard that was training me, he told me that it happens to everybody. They hate this place because of what happened here, a lot of murders. And in 18th century, when it all began, there was a lot of suicides, self-harmers, inside pregnancies, and all crazy things going on, and no medical help. Women would go in for something as small as depression, and then they'd never come out. So it was all still trapped, as if it was trapped in the hospital in this century as well. So, I sat on the chair and I said to him, I don't want to stay straight away. I've never said that before about any job, but the feeling I got when I walked through the door, I said, I just want to turn back out and go the other way. And he says, you've got to stay a month. And he says, you've got to stay a month to get paid. Oh, so you don't get any money. And that kind of really spooked me as well. So I said, at the end of the day, I said, okay, I'll try, but I just don't want to be here alone. It was definitely a three-man job. But the next night I was there alone. And, a lot of things was happening in space of 2 months. The doors were slamming, the spirits were talking to me in my ears, and they were ascending from the ceiling, and strange things were happening, like a spirit came down and it kind of slashed me around. And it wasn't like a real cut. It was just like, it was felt like a real cut. I don't know if you've ever watched Buffy Vampire Slayer. When you're half asleep and you're half awake, things are happening to you. You can't explain exactly. Spirit will ascend, slash you across the stomach. You feel the pain, but you can't see anything.
So what did you do
So I called my boss. I called my boss, and I thought he was going to laugh at me down the phone and sort of ask me if I'd been smoking anything. Not that I do, but I thought, obviously kind of think I've lost my mind. And so I said to him, look, I don't want to be here. I just told him I don't want to be here. Please take me away. I don't care if I don't get any money. He says, oh, come on. He says, okay. A few guards have told me similar stories. So I said, he kind of talked me into staying a while, and I said, I'll try. But he did believe me, which was good, because he was laughing, because he already knew that he'd had so many calls from the other guards with the same similar experiences. One guard told me, he started to fall asleep at 1 o'clock, something heavy breathed in his ear, and he shot out of the hospital, never went back. And I worked close with him, and he was telling the truth. He's a big man, so it was quite funny to think that he'd run. He's been a guard for years. So there was a lot of strange scenarios. One guy wouldn't go in the end. He just started sleeping in his car. He's a guard. He didn't want to. He's supposed to sit in the reception, but he started sleeping in his car, afraid. So it was kind of not a very nice scene. But I believe that I moved these spirits on in some way, you see, because finally, after years and years, I found out that the hospital was going to be knocked down. And this was big news, because this was actually advertised on the website for people to go and visit this hospital. And, I didn't find that out till a month later. I said, oh, my God, it's here. The people from the haunted house programs have been coming here and everything. So it was really got scary, So people would be banging on the door at night saying, oh, let us in. We want to see a ghost. We want to see a ghost. And I'd have to send them away and tell them they'd have to come back in the daytime.
It's time for us to go to break right now. So I want to make sure that everyone knows how to get in contact with you and where to get a copy of your book. If you would, please, can you remind everyone?
Yeah, if you do want to get a copy of Devils and Demons, and I highly recommend it. It's an excellent book. There's a lot of information in there. You can get it on the authorhouse.com publishers. You can get it from Amazon or Amazon on the website. and you can get it from Kindle. And there's 2 or 3 other bookstores that I mentioned on there, Barnoble's.
Okay. Well, listeners, you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester. My guest today is Amanda Jane Forbes, and she has written the book Devils and Demons. So, Amanda, with all that was going on, why do you think that you were sent to the places that you were sent, with all of the paranormal activity that was going on? Why do you think you were selected?
I kind of often ask myself the same question: why was it me that had to go and do this? But I believe that I think it's because I was on night shift. I think that the security firm that I was with was just connected to a supernatural environment, because I worked on the neck shop, and I worked late on the neck shop. Many nights I had the spirits tugging at my clothes and getting physical with me after 3 o'clock. And I'd always sort of start to assess, because I felt that every site that I was going to at night had a history of spirits to it, and I just felt that it was actually connected to this security firm, because I'd been in security before and never had anything like this. Mm-hmm. And I feel that the next doors, I went to 4 or 5 next doors late at night, and they're all modern buildings. So I really didn't expect, the spirits to be so active. When the spirit is actually physically pulling your clothes, it's very, very scary when you're on your own at night, and you don't want to call your boss all the time, and you can't leave site with security. You are bound to the site till morning. So it can kind of make you quite poorly sometimes, because your heart rate can raise, your blood pressure can go up, and shock can be dangerous as well. So it's very, very difficult. But I felt like I've known, I've had a sixth sense since I was a child, but I never wanted to develop it to calling up dead spirits or anything like that. I'm a funny kind of person. I'm not a gothic type of person, or really even into the dark side of life at all. So for me to suddenly be experiencing all this, it was it's quite mind blowing, because I see the spirits all the time now, and I feel that because I was alone so much on the sites, I was changing, where I could see things that I couldn't see before, and I see the spirits sitting on the bench, standing by my car, sometimes ascend from the sky, and even brush the hair, and the spirit is standing for quite a long time. But what's disturbing to myself is that the spirit never seems to look at me, who's maybe parked up in the car by the side of the spirit, you see. And if I see them, but it's as if they're not looking at me directly. So sometimes it gets a little strange, quite scary. But I like to be now sort of. I feel involved now in the night world with the supernatural when I'm working. So I say, I enter the building now, and I can tell in 10 minutes or 5 minutes they're here, and people look at me like, is she all right? The staff leave, and then I take over. Yeah. I try to get a comfortable seat, and just I literally feel like sometimes I'm sitting in sci-fi definition, and I take pictures with my phone sometimes, and the spirits have been in the pictures. So they are there for people that are skeptic, and there's a lot of people I know that are skeptic. I would have said I never really knew ghosts existed until I did this job, and I was skeptic, but not anymore. So, when I got a picture of ghosts on my phone, there's no way you can deny it's a clear picture. People can't deny it. I can present the picture and say, look,
So let me ask you this, Christian. How do you think that your faith plays into all of this? Because I'm sure there's this one person saying, "Well, if if she's seeing this, is this a good thing or is this a bad thing?" So how does your faith play into your writing the books and having these experiences?
It's having written the book, it's much better for me that, but what I see comes out, what I experience comes out, and that's to let everybody know, because a lot of people will never accept the other side. A lot of people just want to go around in the world today, oh, everybody's happy, everybody's fine, and that's not the case. There's something more. That's what I have to write about. I get the messages. I'm Christian myself, and I have a lot of faith. And when I do go with these, into these places, sometimes I've gone with my crucifix on, and I've had a Bible with me because I feel safer, to let them know. Some people might say, you attract these people because you're a bad person and things like that. It's not that. I think it's when you're vulnerable. I think when you're vulnerable, or like I was perhaps a lonely kid, even though I was active and outdoors. I was outdoors a lot alone when I used to feed my animals and things like that. That I probably attracted another spirit, the spiritual side, and the spiritual side is probably comforting to me, and but at night you can get the bad spirits, and it's not so comforting because a poltergeist ghost is a dangerous ghost, and we have had them on the site. The sound of spirits dragging bodies along long corridors, and that is very, very frightening. And a lot of staff have heard this, and they've ran to me, sweating and shaking. I can't do anything I can't see it. If I can't see it that night, I can't do anything. Even if I see it, I can't do anything. It's not like a person. I'm a god. We can put handcuffs on a normal person if they're misbehaving, but you can't do that to a ghost. So all you can kind of do is offer people a coffee, try and calm them down, and make sure they get home safe.
Well, Amanda, I just want to say I can't believe that we are already at the end of our show. But thank you for coming on and sharing your experiences with us. I want to ask you guys, where can people find a copy of your book and how can they follow you online?
Okay, you can get a copy of this book on Amazon, on the Amazon website. You just tap in my name, Amanda-Forbes, Devils and Demons. And there is a website as well to do with Author House, authorhouse.com, who helped publish the books.
All righty. Thank you again, Amanda, for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Angela. It's so nice to talk to you. I've heard so much about you. Good things. And I hope this voice gets better.
Thank you so much. And listeners, thank you as well for tuning in today. And as always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, be blessed in the Lord. Bye-bye.